2003 bond left over money from projects. It seems like we've used the technology allotment from that 2003 bond.
There is primarily technology funds left, and there is just a handful of maintenance projects which are left as well, but
So
less than $1 million.
Of the technology allotment portion of the 2003 bond at 19 million?
Right. There's about $2 million left, and I believe it will be expended by the time we're through this summer.
So what we're actually looking at is the encumbering the remaining of the 2003 bond to purchase iPads and iCarts that are not long-term investments.
Mr. President, may I
Yes, sir.
make a comment? But it sounded like, in response, that the money that the voters approved for technology was spent. The voters did not approve using any of this other money for iPads or iCarts. I think that's the point here. And I believe, and well, I know that within the next 30 days or so, there will probably be a ruling from General Abbott on this, thanks to an inquiry from Representative Hildebrand. And they may be using this as one of their examples, but you know, again, it's a principle. People voted they voted to spend $19.5 million on technology. We've spent it. I understand we've earned interest and everything, but that's just not what that's not what the people voted for.
Yeah, and I just keep in mind the bond monies, it should be used for something that is long-term. And I'm quoting something here right from TASB, where it says, first, most school-issued debt is for capital items that have a long lifespan and ultimately a resale value. Okay, so we're talking buildings, land. These iPads are going to have to be replaced in 4 or 5 years. We have the new iPad coming out this fall. We're buying an iPads that are 16 gigabytes, I think. Is that right? 16. If we're going to look at putting more textbooks and things like that on our iPads, we're going to have to go up to 64. So everybody knows software changes every year. I feel that with the big issues coming up with zoning, we may have to repurpose some buildings. And are we going to have the money to do that? We talked about K through 5, the schools that are K through 6, putting them back K through 5. There's going to be money involved with that. There's other things that I think would benefit students more than an iPad. And again, I'm concerned about the hands-on learning environment. This money could also be used to replace lab equipment and actually lab kits for our elementary students. We know they work best with their hands. I just feel this is a black hole. When is enough is enough. We're going to expend the $13 million. What's going to happen when we spend it and IT comes back and says we need more?
Mr. Rice, may I make
Yes.
a comment? One other thing that we have to keep in mind is during the Buck meetings, we heard the projections by Mr. Solhavy calling for explosive growth, especially on the west side, northwest side, in Siena and in Riverstone. And at some point, there are going to have to be schools built there. And when people remember that the last time we used bond money was for iPads, they're not going to approve that. It's just not going to happen. So I think we need to use the money for what the voters approved it for. And this was not on that agenda.
Did I understand correctly that we actually had to refinance in order to make our bond debt payment this year? So we didn't have to have the tax increase?
No, we elected to take advantage of lower interest rates which exist in the market and do a refunding, which allowed us, yes, to maintain our tax rate where it is. It really helps us in the long years so that if you should decide to call another bond in the future, we've created some capacity in the out years. Certainly what we did gave us some additional capacity this year, but our refinancing really helped us in the long term.
So did we refinance over a longer term?
No, we refinanced for a lower interest rate over, I'd have to look, but we refinanced about 10 years worth of bonds at a much lower interest rate.
So this money could also have been used to pay down our debt too?
You could have used it that way, yes, ma'am.
Mr. President, I want to call the